The phone rang just before midnight. Sarah looked up from her desk, eyes tired from staring at spreadsheets and projections. The city lights reflected off the glass walls of her penthouse office. It was quiet, the kind of silence that successful people earn after years of grinding when the world sleeps, and only ambition stays awake. Her phone vibrated again. The caller ID flashed one word she hadn't seen in weeks. "Mom," she answered. "Hi, Mom. Sarah, we need to talk. No greeting, no warmth." Just that familiar, cold tone that carried more judgment than care. Sarah leaned back in her chair. "What's wrong?" "It's about tomorrow." "The wedding," she straightened. "Emma's wedding?" "Yes," her mother said. There was a pause, a muffled voice in the background. Her father. "We've been talking, and we think it's best if you don't come." The words hung in the air. Sarah didn't speak at first. For a moment, she just listened to the hum of her computer and the faint sound of traffic far below. It wasn't surprise she felt. Not really. It was confirmation. She had seen this coming. "You don't want me there?" she asked quietly. Her mother sighed. "Sarah, please don't make this harder than it has to be. You know how important this day is for Emma. All the photos, the guests, the memories. We just want everything to be perfect." Sarah's voice stayed calm. "And I'd ruin that somehow?" "It's not that," her mother replied. "But you know how you've been lately. The way you dress. That old car. Living in that small apartment. Emma's friends, Marcus's family. They're all very successful people. The Hendersons have a reputation to maintain." Sarah almost laughed. She knew exactly how successful Marcus's family was. 6 months ago, he had pitched his startup to her venture capital division. The business model was weak, and she had declined it after a 10-minute review. He never knew who had made that decision. "I'm your daughter, too," she said, her tone steady. "Of course, sweetheart," her mother replied softly. "But sometimes love means making difficult choices. Emma deserves her perfect day. Having you there, in your current situation, would raise questions we'd rather not answer." Current situation. "You know what I mean. The unemployment. The small apartment. The car that barely runs. Emma's wedding will be featured in Metropolitan Weddings. We can't have you in the photos looking like that." Sarah closed her eyes, drew in a long breath, and let the silence stretch. The reality was almost amusing. For 3 years, she had lived under the radar, pretending to scrape by while she built something powerful. A hospitality empire spanning 17 luxury properties across 3 states. Her tiny apartment was a minimalist penthouse worth $4.2 million. Her beat-up Honda? A shield. A way to stay invisible while she built her brand. Her family had no clue. They saw what she allowed them to see, a struggling daughter with an average job who had never quite figured out adulthood. They had no idea that the very venue Emma's wedding would take place in, the Grand View Manor, was one of Sarah's crown jewels. Booked through a shell company, it was her subtle wedding gift, the one they didn't know they owed to her. "Sarah, are you still there?" Her mother's voice broke the silence. "I'm here." "So you understand why this is for the best?" Sarah stood and walked to the window. The city stretched before her, towers of glass, threads of traffic, life in motion. She watched the lights flicker like fireflies. Down there, hundreds of her employees worked through the night, ensuring that her guests experienced perfection in her hotels and resorts. Tomorrow they would have done the same for Emma's wedding. "I understand," she said quietly. "Good. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. Maybe we can all have lunch next week. Just the family. You can see the photos." "Maybe," Sarah replied. "All right then. Get some sleep, sweetheart." "I love you." "Love you too, Mom." The line clicked dead. She sat for a long time staring at nothing, the echo of the conversation replaying in her head. Her own family had uninvited her from her sister's wedding because they were ashamed of what they thought she had become. They saw failure where there was quiet power. They saw embarrassment where there was restraint. She could have changed that perception at any time. She could have shown them the Forbes article that named her one of the 30 under 30 entrepreneurs to watch. She could have pointed to the wall of awards behind her, desk, or the corporate contracts that bore her signature. But she hadn't. She wanted to see who they really were, what family meant when status was stripped away. Now she knew. She unlocked her phone and searched for a contact. James Morrison, general manager of Grandview Manor, a loyal employee, professional, efficient. He had no idea that the Henderson wedding belonged to his employer's family. The line clicked. "Ms. Adams," he answered, alert despite the late hour. "Is everything all right?" "James," she said calmly, "cancel the Henderson reservation for tomorrow." A pause. "Cancel? Ma'am, that wedding is in 12 hours. The deposit was $30,000, and they paid the full $180,000 in advance. We'd be risking a lawsuit. Refund them immediately. Every cent," Sarah cut in. "Cancel everything. The ceremony, the reception, catering, flowers, music, all of it." Another pause. "May I ask why?" "The family will be devastated. Our entire staff has been preparing for weeks." Sarah walked to the window again, her voice quiet. "Let's just say there's been a change of plans." "Should I contact the family?" "No, they'll find out when they arrive." "Ma'am, are you sure?" "Completely. Trust me, James. Process the refund. I'll handle any fallout." "Yes, ma'am. What about staff assignments? We'll have 47 employees without work tomorrow. Give everyone the day off. Full pay." James hesitated, then said, "Understood." When she hung up, the office was silent again. She opened her laptop, logged into her company's finance portal, and authorized the refund to her parents' account. The sender's name would read Meridian Hospitality Group. They would never make the connection. Then she made another call. Her assistant, Marina, picked up instantly. "Sarah, is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," Sarah said, voice flat. "I need a favor. Book the penthouse suite at Ocean View Resort for tomorrow night. Have Thomas pick me up at 10? "That's 6 hours away," Marina replied. "I know. Clear my week." When the arrangements were confirmed, Sarah sat on the edge of her desk, looking out at the skyline. For a brief second, she wondered if she'd gone too far. Emma didn't know about the call. She was probably asleep, dreaming about her perfect day. But then Sarah thought about all the times she had been excluded, all the silent dismissals dressed as politeness, and realized this was the only way to be seen, by first disappearing. She turned off the lights, left her office, and stood in the dark glass corridor overlooking the city that she had helped build. In 12 hours, her family would arrive at a wedding that no longer existed, and for the first time in years, she felt calm. The sun rose quietly over the city, painting the skyline in shades of gold. Across town, the Grandview Manor came alive. Staff moved with practiced precision, decorators adjusted centerpieces, and photographers tested their cameras. Everything looked perfect, except the bookings. Unknown to anyone on site, every reservation had been voided hours earlier. The system now listed the Henderson event as canceled by management. At 9:01 a.m., James Morrison, the general manager, stood in his office reading the email Sarah had sent after their late-night call. It was short, clear, final, refund issued. No further discussion required. He had worked under many CEOs, but none like her. Sarah Adams never raised her voice, never repeated herself, never acted out of emotion. So when she told him to shut down an entire wedding, he didn't argue. He simply obeyed. He took a sip of coffee, exhaled, and began calling the staff. "Everyone stand down. The Henderson event is off. If guests arrive, stay calm. Handle it professionally." At 10:30 a.m., the first guests began to arrive. Sarah's parents pulled up in a white Range Rover, both smiling, dressed in their best. Her mother's pearls gleamed in the sun. Her father checked his watch, satisfied that they were early. They stepped inside, greeted by the faint scent of roses and polished marble. The receptionist smiled politely. "Good morning, sir, ma'am. May I have the name for your reservation?" "Henderson Wedding," her father said proudly. The receptionist typed for a moment, her smile fading slightly. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" "Henderson Wedding," her mother said again, frowning. "Our daughter Emma is the bride." The receptionist hesitated. "One moment, please." She excused herself and hurried toward James's office. Within minutes, confusion spread through the lobby. Guests began to arrive one after another, carrying gifts and flowers, their chatter filling the air. Bridesmaids stepped out of cars in pastel dresses. The photographer adjusted his equipment near the stairs. Then the whispers began. James walked out of his office, his face composed but tense. "Mr. and Mrs. Henderson," he said calmly, "may I speak with you privately?" They followed him into the lounge. "What's going on?" her father asked, irritation creeping into his voice. James sat across from them. "I regret to inform you that the event was canceled by the booking party early this morning. The full payment has been refunded," her mother blinked. "Canceled? By whom?" "The record lists the decision as final and authorized by Meridian Hospitality Group. That's all I can disclose." Her father's voice rose. "This is absurd. We've paid everything. The ceremony starts in 2 hours." James nodded. "I understand, sir. But the property is no longer available for private events today." Her mother stood. "We need to speak to whoever made that decision immediately." "I'm afraid that won't be possible," James said. "Our CEO authorized the cancellation personally." "Then call her." "I'm sorry. She's unavailable." Her father's anger deepened. "Do you have any idea who we are? We'll take this to court. We'll ruin your reputation." James stayed calm. "You're free to take any action you see fit, sir." "I've already processed your refund." Her mother stared at him, speechless. "This is insane. Our daughter's wedding. What are we supposed to do now?" Outside, guests were beginning to notice the delay. The bride, Emma, arrived in her white gown, radiant and excited, holding her bouquet. She stepped out of the car, smiling, expecting photographers and family to rush to her side. Instead, she saw confusion. People talking in small groups, no music, no ceremony set up. She looked at her maid of honor. "What's happening?" No one answered. Her father rushed outside, waving his hands. "There's been a mistake. Everyone, please wait." The photographer lowered his camera. The guests looked uneasy. Emma's smile faltered. Her mother approached her, voice shaking. "Honey, there's been a misunderstanding with the venue. But we'll fix it, don't worry." Emma's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "The reservation was canceled," her mother said softly. Emma froze. "Canceled? By who?" Her father looked away. "They said their CEO canceled it personally." Emma took a step back. "That doesn't make sense. Why would anyone—" She stopped. A thought crossed her mind, sudden and sharp. Her eyes widened. "Wait, who owns Meridian Hospitality Group?" Her mother frowned. "I don't know. Some company in the city." "Why does that matter?" Emma whispered. "Because Sarah used to work there." Her parents stared at her. "What did you say?" her father asked. "Sarah," Emma repeated. "She mentioned Meridian once, years ago. Said she had connections there." Her mother shook her head. "No, Sarah's not even employed right now. She told us she left her firm." Emma turned toward the manor. "No, Sarah didn't leave anything. She's behind this." "I know it." At that moment, her phone buzzed. A text. No name, just a number she recognized. "Check your email." Emma opened her inbox. One new message. Subject line, "Congratulations." Inside was a single sentence. "The world doesn't always see what's real until it's too late." Below that, a link. She tapped it. A private website loaded. Meridian Holdings corporate portfolio. A list of assets appeared. Hotels, resorts, event spaces, restaurants. Every property displayed a small logo in the corner. The same logo printed on the invitations. Napkins and banners around her. At the bottom, one line read, "Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Sarah E. Adams." Emma's breath caught. Her parents leaned over her shoulder, reading the same words. Her mother whispered, "No, that can't be true." Her father sank into a chair, face draining of color. "She owns all this?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "She owns this place. She owns everything." Outside, guests were beginning to leave. Confusion turned into murmurs. The staff quietly started clearing the unused decorations. Within an hour, the Grandview Manor stood empty again, sunlight pouring through its glass doors like nothing had ever happened. Emma sat on the steps, bouquet still in her hand, staring at her phone. The words replayed in her head. The world doesn't always see what's real until it's too late. She finally understood. Across town, Sarah watched from her balcony, coffee in hand. Her phone buzzed with news alerts. Henderson wedding canceled unexpectedly. Guests shocked. Her company's name wasn't mentioned, of course. It never would be. She smiled slightly. Now they'll see. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. The next morning, the Henderson household was silent. No laughter, no clinking dishes, no leftover celebration. The once lively home now carried an air of disbelief. The wedding that was supposed to mark the happiest day of their lives had become a public embarrassment. Emma sat at the dining table, still in her robe, hair undone, staring at her untouched cup of coffee. Her phone lay on the table, screen dark, after hours of unanswered calls. Her parents sat across from her, equally drained. The family that had spent years polishing its image suddenly had nothing to hide behind. Her father broke the silence first. "We need to talk to her." Her mother looked up. "She won't answer." "She will," he said firmly. "She planned this. She humiliated us. She doesn't get to disappear." Emma spoke quietly. "She didn't do it to humiliate us." Her parents turned toward her. "She did it to teach us something," Emma continued. "She could have exposed us publicly. She didn't. She just showed us what we refused to see." Her mother's voice trembled. "You're defending her?" Emma looked at her calmly. "You told her not to come because she'd ruin the pictures. Because she looked unsuccessful. But she owns the entire chain that hosted your perfect wedding." "She didn't ruin anything." "We did." Her father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough! I'm not letting her play victim." If she wanted respect, she could have earned it honestly. Instead, she hid behind a fake story and pulled this stunt to get revenge. Emma stood. She didn't hide. "She built everything while you ignored her. You cared more about appearances than truth. You always have." Her father glared at her. "You don't understand what it's like to protect a family's name." Emma met his eyes. "No, Dad. You mean protect your pride." The room fell silent again. After a long moment, her mother spoke softly. "We'll go to her, today." Her father hesitated, then nodded. "Fine." At noon, the three of them stood in front of Sarah's building. A sleek tower of steel and glass rising over the city. The receptionist recognized their last name immediately. "Ms. Adams is expecting you," she said, though Sarah hadn't mentioned any appointment. The elevator opened to the top floor. Sarah's office was spacious and bright, overlooking the skyline. She was seated behind her desk, dressed simply in a black suit, calm and composed. Her mother spoke first. "Sarah." Sarah looked up, her expression unreadable. "You found me." Her father took a step forward. "We need to talk," Sarah nodded. "Then talk." Her father hesitated, glancing around the office. "So it's true. All of this is yours." "Yes," Sarah said. "Every building, every property, every employee. Meridian Hospitality is mine." Her mother clasped her hands. "Why didn't you tell us?" Sarah leaned back. "Because you never asked. You were too busy comparing me to Emma." Her father frowned. "That's not fair." Sarah's tone stayed calm. "Isn't it? You cut me off when I left my corporate job to start my own business. You said I was being unrealistic. You called me a disappointment at Christmas. When I stopped showing up to family events, no one called to ask why. You just assumed I was failing." Her mother's eyes lowered. "We didn't mean to hurt you," Sarah's voice sharpened. "But you did. And yesterday you confirmed it when you told me not to come to the wedding because I wasn't good enough for your pictures." Her mother's face reddened. "We were just trying to protect Emma's day." Sarah's eyes softened for a moment. "And I protected it for you. I gave her that venue as a gift. I made sure everything was perfect. Until you decided I didn't belong there." Her father's voice rose. "So you canceled the wedding? That was your revenge?" Sarah looked directly at him. "It wasn't revenge. It was a lesson. You taught me that image matters more than integrity. I wanted you to see what happens when you value reputation over reality." Emma stepped forward. "Sarah, they didn't know. I didn't either. But what you did, it worked. They see it now. Sarah turned to her sister. I know you didn't mean harm, Emma. You followed their lead. But you all needed to see what I became without your approval. Her mother took a step closer. You could have told us sooner. Sarah's voice stayed even. And if I had, would you have listened? Or would you have smiled and still looked down on me for not fitting your version of success? Her mother couldn't answer. Sarah stood, walked to the window, and looked out. Do you know how long I worked to get here? 12 years. I started with a small cafe, worked 16-hour days, bought my first property with borrowed money. I failed twice, slept in my office, but I kept going. Not once did any of you call to ask if I was okay. Emma's eyes filled with tears. We were wrong. Sarah turned back, calm but firm. Yes, you were. Her father's voice dropped. What do you want from us now? An apology? Sarah shook her head. No, I don't need that. I just wanted you to see the truth before you rewrite the story. Because people like you, people obsessed with perfection, always rewrite the story. Her mother whispered, Sarah, please. We didn't mean to lose you. Sarah looked at her for a long moment. You didn't lose me. You let me go. The room fell silent again. After a few seconds, Sarah gestured toward the door. Go home, be with your daughter. Celebrate her marriage when you can. Just don't pretend it was ever about love if it was really about status. Her father hesitated, then turned toward the door. Her mother followed, eyes wet. Emma lingered. She looked at Sarah quietly. You could have destroyed us. You didn't, thank you. Sarah smiled faintly. You're still my sister. Emma nodded, then left. When the door closed, Sarah exhaled slowly. For the first time in years, the silence in her office didn't feel empty. It felt clean. She walked to her desk, picked up her phone, and opened an email draft. Subject, for family. She began to type. Sometimes people need to lose access to you to understand your value. I'm not angry. I'm free. She hit send. Outside, the city kept moving, unaware of what had just shifted inside one quiet office at the top of the skyline. The days after the confrontation passed quietly. No more phone calls, no messages, no drama. The city moved as usual, but for Sarah, the silence meant peace. She had said everything that needed to be said. She didn't crave closure because she already had it. On the third morning, she woke early and made coffee. The skyline outside her window was calm, streaks of orange cutting through the gray. For years, she had measured success by milestones, deals, and acquisitions. Now, sitting in her apartment, she realized she finally had something she never built deliberately: freedom. She opened her laptop and scanned through reports from her managers. Occupancy was up across all resorts. A new investor proposal waited in her inbox. She replied with precision, her tone sharp and decisive. Work had always been her language, and even after everything, it still grounded her. At 9 a.m., the intercom buzzed. Ms. Adams, a visitor is here. Miss Emma Henderson, Sarah hesitated. Send her up. When the elevator doors opened, Emma stepped out holding a small box. She looked different, tired, but lighter. Her wedding ring caught the morning light. Sarah gestured to a chair. Coffee? Emma shook her head. No thanks. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, I came to say thank you. Sarah raised an eyebrow. For what? Canceling your wedding? Emma smiled faintly. For forcing the truth out. After you left, Mom and Dad started seeing things differently. They're embarrassed, but they're learning. And I needed to see it too. I used to believe success was about applause. Now I know it's about control. Sarah leaned back. Control doesn't come easy. I know, Emma said softly. That's why you earned it. She placed the box on Sarah's desk. This was supposed to be your seat gift at the wedding. I had it made before Mom told you not to come. Sarah opened it. Inside was a silver bracelet with a single word engraved. Unseen. Emma said, You've always worked in silence. I thought that word fit you. Now I see it means something else. You weren't unseen. We just refused to look. Sarah's eyes stayed fixed on the bracelet. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then she said quietly, You're the only one who could have given me this. Emma smiled. I meant every word. They talked for an hour. Not about the wedding, not about the family. Just life, work, small things. It felt natural, like rebuilding something piece by piece. When Emma left, she hugged Sarah tightly before stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, Sarah whispered, "Take care of yourself." After she was gone, Sarah sat back at her desk and looked at the bracelet again, unseen. The word didn't hurt anymore. It reminded her of the path she'd chosen, the silence that built her empire, the discipline that kept her standing. That evening, Sarah drove out of the city. The highway stretched under a pale sunset, open and quiet. She didn't have a destination in mind, just movement. For the first time, she didn't need a plan. After an hour, she pulled into a coastal overlook. The ocean spread before her, vast and steady. She stepped out of the car, the wind cutting through her hair, the smell of salt in the air. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her mother, dinner next Sunday. Just us, no photos. No speeches. Sarah read it twice, then smiled. I'll be there, she replied. She put the phone away and leaned against the railing, watching the waves crash below. All her life, she had been the quiet one, the underestimated one, the sister no one talked about at parties. But in silence, she had built an empire, and now she had something stronger than recognition: respect. The world still didn't know her face, and that was fine. She didn't need to be seen to be powerful. She had already proved it. As the sun dropped below the horizon, the city lights began to glow behind her. The sound of the waves mixed with the hum of traffic far away. Sarah whispered to herself, "They finally know who I am." Then she smiled, calm and certain. "And I'm still the same." She turned, got back in her car, and drove toward the lights, the road open, her silence unbroken. Her story was no longer about revenge. It was about arrival, and this time she wasn't unseen. She was unforgettable.